Okay, well, thanks for taking the time to watch this video. My name is Jeff Moore. I'm one of the shop captains here at TinkerMill for the Woodshop. Today on this video is we're going to talk about woodshop safety and our policies here at TinkerMill to keep you safe and keep the shop running. Please observe the safety, material policies, housekeeping, and materials that we allow in the shop. If you have any questions at all about the shop itself, how to contact the shop captains is on the whiteboard. So at J Moore and at Eric Akia. Ping us on Slack. That's the best way to get our attention. Otherwise, we may not be in the shop for a few days. We wouldn't find that there was a problem. So please keep us informed, and we'll try to get the shop running. So let's start with personal protective equipment. Safety glasses are supplied. They're required to be worn at all times in the shop, even if you're not working on a tool. You don't know what other people might be doing that could cause a chip or something to fly across the room and hit you in the eye. So industrial quality eye protection has side shields. This particular pair has vision correction, so I can actually read. So I don't have to use my prescription glasses. This protects the side face as well. So hearing protection is provided. We also have some over-ear muffs, which are my preferred because they actually don't take out more sound. And N95 mask is a good thing because it will take out most of the dust particles that you're going to generate while you're working on your projects. Gloves are not used while we're in the power tools section. You can use them to haul your material in and out of your car to prevent splinters and things like that. But when you're actually turning on a saw or planing a board, take the gloves off. They get caught in the equipment and they can actually drag your hand into the equipment. So please, 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 any rotating equipment has the opportunity to drag you into it. So keep gloves out of the path of your rotating equipment. There are several fire extinguishers in the shop. There's one back in this closet. There's one right outside the woodshop door. There's one on the left side of this door. And then the silver can is water only, so that would be used for like paper or wood. If you get a trash can on fire, that probably is the best way. And if you look right above the fire extinguisher there's a pull station. If you get a fire in the wood shop, don't hesitate. Call 911 and pull the fire alarm so we can evacuate the building. It's better to be safe on a small fire because they can turn into big fires. So please, please be safe. So I also want you to know about our first aid kit, which lives up here. It's a basic first aid kit that has things like Band-Aids and alcohol wipes in it. If you need more than like a Band-Aid, call 911. Also want to point out that there's an eye wash station mounted on the wall here. So if you get something in your eye, saline solution will help rinse it out. And make sure you do a good job, and if there's any further complications, make sure you see your physician. One other topic we need to touch on is that there's no alcohol or drug use allowed in the shop. If you're under the influence of drugs or alcohol, please don't come in here and use the equipment. We don't want you to hurt yourself if you're under the influence. This main aisleway needs to be kept clear. Basically, anything from that door to this door must be kept clear at all times. The reason for that is for evacuation of the building and the woodshop itself. We talked about clothing, so closed-toed shoes are required. No flip-flops or sandals, and make sure that we're not requiring like safety shoes, but you know, if you drop a nail or a board with a nail in it on your foot, you want to make sure it doesn't penetrate your toes. Baggy sleeves and anything dangling like, you know, like long hair. We have hair ties in this green container over there on that white bookcase. We also have hearing protection. So we supply that because you're going to need it. We recommend you remove your rings because there's another opportunity for a piece of rotating equipment to pull you into the saw or the drill, and you know, you don't want to see your finger without any skin on it. So we'll talk about the tools. We have several power tools in the shop. Anything that basically is on the floor or on wheels, the big tools, require certifications. And once you're certified, you have to be a member in order to use the tools outside of class. Under 16, actually under 18, and minors may only use the shop with a parent or guardian present and supervising your activities. Inspect the tools for damage before use. You know, you're going to be looking for things like damaged cords, missing teeth on saw blades. Are the guards in place and are they working? And when you start up a tool, if it sounds funny, there's probably something wrong. So report any damaged tools on Slack and mark it with a sign. And if it's like a cord or a hand tool, the red tags we have in the shop are in the front office. So please tag it, date it, sign your name so we know who to contact if we have questions. So this is a community space. What that means is that there could be several people working in here at once, and we want to make sure that everybody is communicating with each other to make sure that we're not interfering with each other's activities. So please be courteous. This is, like I said, this is a shared space, and what we're after is a community where we can have people helping each other do their projects, as well as just being nice to each other. There's nothing wrong with being nice. If you see someone doing something that's dangerous, don't just jump in and yell at them, because that could cause another problem. Like if they're on the table saw and they're doing some cut that you know is not safe, stand back, wait for them to get to where they're in a neutral position, and then do some coaching. Tell them there's a better way to do it, or point out that this was dangerous for this reason. Please help us with safety. We don't want anybody getting hurt. And if you need help, ask for help. There's probably somebody here most of the time that can help you with a project. And if there isn't anybody here, reach out on Slack. And I tend to try to be in tune with what's going on with Slack so that I can help people with what their problems are. If you're working alone, be extra careful. If there's no one else in the building, it's just, there's nobody other here to help you, so make sure that you're doing everything safely. There's tape on the floor in front of the electrical panel. We don't want to stack anything in there because that's required by code, and storing stuff in front of an electrical panel is definitely a bad thing. So clean up after yourself. If you didn't make the mess, somebody else did, that's no excuse not to clean up their mess. Let's try to make the shop cleaner than when you found it. Feel free to let people know that they haven't cleaned up and have them work on doing that. The shop captains volunteer to keep things running, and we also make the shop operating policies. Only wood may be cut in the wood shop. There's a material policy posted on the door. Plastics can be used in the general workbench and metals in the machine shop. If you're unsure of the history of a piece of material you're working on, we have a metal detector. Hangs on the end of that bench. Pretty simple to use. Think airport. So you scan your wood. Make sure you don't have any nails or anything that could damage your equipment. Also, there's a moisture meter that it's got these pins on it, and if you touch your wood, it should show that there is moisture or not. These are pin type meters. I don't really trust this stuff that much, but if you're unsure and if it's been outside in the weather, you're going to want to check it. If it's above like 7 or 10%, then you're not going to want to work on it in the shop. Get it dried out before you use it. There's really no room here at TinkerMill to store your projects. If we did that, then we'd have no space to work. However, there's one exception. If you have a glue up, you can leave it overnight to let the glue dry, but you do need to put a sign on it that says, has your name and your contact information, as well as the date. You will be expected to come back inside of 12 hours to take it out of the clamps and take your stuff away. In most cases, most glues the glues we use will set up in 3 or 4 hours, so it's pretty safe to take them out of the clamps after overnight. The shop runs on donations. Your membership pays for the building, pays for the electricity, pays for the water, pays the taxes. This shop really needs to have donations coming from members in order to replace saw blades, in order to make sure that we have supplies on hand, resharpen stuff, as well as we actually buy new equipment with it as well. So there's a suggested donation policy. It's like $2 an hour, $5 a day, $30 a month if you're going to make your own decisions. And you can pay that with cash in a little cash drawer over there, or you can pay it with PayPal at the front office. If you see a trash can that's full, empty it in the dumpster so that it doesn't, if we have empty trash cans, people are more likely to use them. Now we're going to talk about what materials are allowed to be used in the wood shop. It's called a wood shop for a reason. That's because we work on wood in here. There's no metals or plastics. So wood products that are cleared for the shop include things like solid wood, plywood, MDF, that's medium density fiberboard, particle board, and melamine coated particle board. Wood products that are explicitly not allowed in the shop due to safety. Treated lumber, they contain toxic chemicals that we don't need to expose everybody to work on. Painted lumber, there's a potential for lead contamination, especially if you're using old barn wood. Every time I've used barn wood, it's tested positive for lead, so don't bring it in here. Composites of wood, like Trex, that's a decking material that's got plastic and wood. It just gums up the saw blades. It's not really something we want in the shop. A lot of these materials can be cut on a Shopbot, but the Shopbot's not part of the wood shop, so that's a separate, it's actually a separate shop even though it's housed here in the wood shop. Used lumber is conditionally allowed. Unpainted wood only. It goes back to painted lumber is not allowed. You want to make sure you test it for metal before you use it in the shop, and then remove any metal you do find. Any used lumber must be cleaned up. Like if it's like pallets, they've been out in the gravel, we don't want to run a piece of gravel through the joiner or the planer. So you can clean it up with a drum sander or the belt sander. You know, through this drum sander, it'll knock off all the surface grime. Or you can take a belt sander and do it outside if you can. You want to use like a 60 or an 80 grit. That'll bring it down to the wood and then it'll clean it up. You can also make sure you sand all the edges and knock off any dirt with like an orbital sander. And if you're using a Sawstop, you want to make sure you test it for moisture. Sawstop doesn't have a moisture content requirement, but they say if it's too wet, it'll trip the Sawstop. So be very, very, very cognizant of what you're working with and make sure it doesn't have too much moisture in it. And if you're unsure of any material you might have, make sure you test it for metal, make sure you test it for moisture. I'll say it again, because all those things can create other issues when you're trying to use the materials. I already mentioned that plastic products can be machined on the Shopbot, but not on wood equipment. There are things like resin-filled woods like if you have a piece of rotted lumber and you fill it with epoxy and you're going to turn it on the lathe, that is allowed. However, you need to take extra precautions because materials like acrylic or epoxy filled wood actually create continuous chips, and they can get really hot and they can hurt your fingers. So be very careful when you're working with those materials and practice on them before you get too far into your projects. This is not an all-inclusive list and it's subject to change. If you're unsure about anything, ask a shop captain. We'll make sure that we'll give you an answer as soon as possible.